Knowledge is power. Make an impact by learning more, or hire us to do it for you. Let us focus on what we do best so you can stay focused on what you do best. Find all of our options under services, one-to-one training, subscription-based training, or accounting and business consulting. So now we're officially starting. Good morning. Happy Friday. We're live. We're semi-live. We're being recorded, not live. We'll be live. Well, we will never be live. Forget it.
And Facebook gets its act together.
Live to us?
Right. We will upload the recording later on. So another reason why you should always just sign up and come to the live webinar this way instead of counting on Facebook, because Facebook cannot be counted on. It's Facebook.
Damn you, Zuckerberg!
So the question is, where are we going next after Facebook? We all left MySpace for Facebook. We need to figure out what we're going to leave Facebook to go to.
So please don't tell me it's going to be alignable.
Alignable? No.
Oh, yeah, I shouldn't have. Now I'm getting spam.
Yeah, no, there's a few of these that you should just avoid that, and referral key is horrible.
Oh my gosh, yes, that's the worst. Referral key is the worst.
Key is, if you want to spam your entire address book, sign up for referral key.
Can we go live on LinkedIn yet?
It will do it for you. No, not that I'm aware of. All right, still more people. So we lost one, but now we've gained a few. So we're up to 25 panelists. And it's now 10 after 8. So who would like to talk about the subject of the day?
I forgot what it was already.
I know, me too. You know what? We'll do it again next week. I'll see you then.
No.
Thanks for joining us.
It might be part 1, part 2.
That's right.
I don't know. I think we have enough time to get through it all. We're talking about setting goals and pricing your services.
Oh, yeah.
And I need to get my template up here. And so I'm going to go through some stuff, and then I'm going to share a template with you. I'm going to tease you. This is a template that we use in 97 and up. And so it's available to anybody who joins 97 and up, hint, hint. But I'm going to go through it, and because it's an exercise that we do to help figure out our pricing. And it's different than what you're accustomed to seeing and learning in our world. And I think you're going to find that it's a much, much simpler, more practical way of arriving at your pricing, right? So let me back up and give you kind of some background on this. I mean, you know, where is this all coming from? Accountants are supposed to be the most trusted advisors, right? And we're supposed to have integrity. And it surprises me sometimes because I hear from people, I have a lot of conversations with a lot of people in and around our industry, and I hear things. And I'm surprised to hear sometimes about conversations that people have, colleagues of mine have had with other accounting professionals in which, now wait for this, people actually go as far as to say they don't want to be more efficient because they want to continue charging by the hour, and the increased efficiency would actually mean they made less money.
That's so dumb.
That is really dumb, and it completely lacks any modicum of integrity. There's no integrity in that. Basically, you're going to screw your clients because you're afraid you're going to make less money. And these accountants are missing the whole point, right? They'll soon be out of jobs and careers at that rate. Guaranteed. I give them, at best, 5 years before the rest of the world catches on completely and says, why are you still charging me by the hour when everybody else is charging flat fees, right? And I want to share something with you. It's a true story. And this is how I got sort of converted from hourly to flat rate pricing in my own practice. It was the moment that I became aware that I had to do it. And so it was a number of years, more than a few years back, maybe 5 years ago, maybe even more. But I get a call from a client, and the long and short, he's got a project that he came straight out and told me on the initial call that he estimated it was about a $5,000 job. And as he explained it to me, you know, there were two companies, there were assemblies needed in both companies. These were manufacturing companies, and he needed to set up new companies in QuickBooks Enterprise. And he also wanted me to fly out to Vegas for a day where he was based and train his accountants from China on how to use QuickBooks Enterprise once I had the files set up, because they were using other proprietary software until then. So he wanted to convert it over to something that was more prevalent here in the US, because even though his operations of manufacturing was in China, his company was based in the US. So I immediately agreed to the $5,000. I didn't have to think very hard about it, because there were, and mind you, there were thousands of line items that had to be imported and bills of materials created for all these different items that he had. And so imagine manually keying that stuff. I would have had to hire a full-time staff, and it still would have taken weeks to get that job done. Adding in all the items at every level and then setting up the bills and materials, right? But I knew I was going to be able to import them. And I knew that I knew exactly how I needed to set up the import file. And I knew I was going to pretty much throw it onto them to have them kind of give me the structure. Excuse me. So I gave them a spreadsheet and said, in one column we have the parent item. That has to be repeated for every sub-item that it goes with, or for every component of the assembly that goes with the finished good. And I had them 2 spreadsheets, one for each company. I had them fill it all out. They got it back to me. And once I got the Excel back from the client, I had the item list imported, and both QuickBooks companies were set up within 30 minutes. Okay? Not bad for $5,000. The only other thing I had to do was fly to Vegas and spend a day with them. Still very well worth my time for an entire day, for $5,000. So, having done that and spent the one day, I earned my $5,000, and I thought that was pretty good. I got pretty excited about making $5,000, considering how, first of all, the training part was just a fun day in Vegas training his accountants to me. That wasn't even work to me. It was fun. And the actual work part, like I said, was 30 minutes. So that's when I realized, imagine if I had charged him by the hour with the efficiency of importing. I would have billed him for 1 hour's time. In those days, I probably would have billed him like $150, right? And I would have billed him for a half an hour. I would have made $75, plus a day of training at whatever rate. It wouldn't have come close to $5,000 what I would have gotten paid if I was charging by the hour, right? And, so the fact is this. The world of the cloud has enabled us to work with ridiculous efficiency. We can automate many things. We use Zapier to set up new clients in QuickBooks Online now, using information the client submitted on the form. I've got videos on how I've done that. The other day, I created a Zap because I wanted to start sending weekly emails out to our 97 and up group. So I created a Zap that automatically adds new subscribers to a list in MailChimp. And then another Zap that if somebody cancels their subscription, it automatically unsubscribes them from that list. That way I'm only emailing to people who are active members of the program, right? To do that manually would just be a pain in the neck. It would take time. I don't have to worry about it now. All I have to do is each week go in and write the email and send it out to that list, right? Makes it really, really easy. And now in an upcoming 97 and up call, of course, I'm going to teach our group how I did this, right? How we do this, because that's the kind of stuff we do in 97 and up is, I go out there, I figure out how to do something. Usually it starts something like this. I say, you know what? There's got to be a better way. That phrase is like the starting point of all innovation for me, right? Anytime I find myself thinking there's got to be a better way, that means I'm on my way to figuring out a way to innovate, a way to automate something, a way to use AI, something to make a process go more efficiently, something to take one more thing off my plate so that I no longer have to think about it. And that's, in a sense, what I'm trying to do every day is find ways to take things out of my brain, one less thing to think about, right? So when you learn how to do this stuff for yourself, by the way, now you can do it for clients and get paid. Imagine that, right? So as we automate and innovate, we get to build other streams of income. I shared this when Matthew and I were live the other night from a restaurant earlier this week, where because of this kind of process, I have a client who, we've gotten things really up to speed on the CFO plan that where I provide him with CFO level services. And then he wants me to help him automate processes in his business because he sees that I do that in my business. So, he's paying me good money to help him, automate processes for him. That's going to be the next phase of my engagement with him there. So efficiency and automation are not something to be feared. It's something to be embraced. It's something to take advantage of. But you've got to see the whole picture, right? Otherwise, you'll miss the point. So you can't work in the cloud and get more efficient while still charging by the hour. It doesn't work that way. You can't say, well, I'll go to the cloud first, then I'll switch over my pricing model. You're going to get killed, right? Your billings are going to drop because you're going to be getting more efficient, doing things a lot faster, and charging by the hour, you literally do lose money that way, right? And yet the output's still the same. You're providing the exact same value to the client, right? So the idea is to find ways to take what used to take hours and turn it into minutes. And I know that sounds extreme, but I've been able to do this with lots of processes, and I'm going to give you an example of one soon. taking the time to set up bank feed rules. I used to not bother, I'd, create rules here and there. But the more I realized that if I took the time now and front loaded it and spent the time creating those rules, it's an economy of scale, right? You think of that curve, if you've ever taken economics, it starts off up here. And then because I front loaded it, as time goes on, it goes down. It gets easier and easier, and it costs less and less, right? It takes less and less time because there's fewer and fewer rules I need to create as I create them, right? And so pretty soon to update my bank feeds takes 5 minutes a week, if that, right? And used to take an hour a week, right? So again, case in point, I can turn hours into minutes very easily. And then that makes reconciling much faster, right? Because in most cases, when I go to reconcile, I punch in my ending balance, I choose select all, and I'm reconciled. And here's why. And wait for this, right? Some of you are going to get mad at me when I say this, or you're going to have 18 excuses why it won't work that way in your particular case. And there may be some valid exceptions, but I would challenge you to try and overcome those exceptions if you're one of those people. But there should be no outstanding checks. We need to stop writing checks, people. It's ridiculous. Amen. If you go to New Zealand, they don't even have checks there. They are so far ahead of us in technology. Stop writing checks. Stop your clients from writing checks. Tell them it's less efficient and less secure. Much easier to steal your money when you have checks out there.
Well, it still boils down to vendors taking ACH or vendors,
Fair enough, but there's ways around that. I can use a bill.com to get around that. Let bill.com
because they
better
draft
security on that than I do. They have check 21. They upload a list, and only what's on that list is going to get honored. So at least
because they draft like a direct deposit for the whole batch, and it comes out of their bank account, not yours.
Exactly. And again, they can afford security levels at the bank that none of us can, right?
Mm-hmm.
BillBees is offering bill pay now, and it's going to be the same kind of thing, and their fees are a lot less than bill.com, by the way. And there's no per transaction fees. It's just a straight like $30 a month, and your payments are processed no matter how many you process, right? Much simpler pricing. And they are using Dwala to process the ACHs, and they're using checkbook.io for checks, which, by the way, can also be done electronically. I've been playing around with it. It's so cool. I paid somebody the other day through BillBees and through the checkbook.io side, and she got an email. It invited her to enter her account details, the accountant routing number. She entered it in, and she got paid. Done. Really easy. No actual physical check had to change hands. Mm-hmm. So there really shouldn't be any outstanding checks. And if there aren't, that goes back to reconciliations being much more efficient, because that's the one thing that slows a reconciliation down. If I go select all, now I've got to uncheck any checks that haven't cleared, right? So, and it sounds like something small and simple, but this kind of stuff adds up. So it's 2018, time to stop writing checks, start paying things online. My understanding now is that I think BillBees is looking at Veeam and looking to partner with Veeam as a way to process electronic payments and especially the international payments. So it's just going to be getting better and better and easier to process payments. And there are going to be fewer and fewer excuses for people to actually be, and think about this, the internal process, talking about streamlining processes. If I'm printing checks, I used to think it was so cool because I can print a batch of checks. I can print 20 checks at once, right? But now I've got a stack of 20 checks that I have to sign, right? That takes time. I got to take each check and stuff it in an envelope. I got to lick that envelope and put a stamp on it. Maybe I've got a postage meter, right? Maybe that speeds up that process a little bit. But still, that process takes time. It slows me down, and it's a waste of my time. There's better things I can be using that time to do, right? And it's easily solved by just doing everything electronically. So, and another example recently, and I shared about this in my session at QuickBooks Connect, recently we were faced with reconciling an eBay sales clearing account, right? And if you understand my process on e-commerce, we've got one client who's got like 1,000 transactions a month going through eBay, right? So we run the sales through eBay clearing, and then we run the payments against that clearing account. So the eBay sales clearing has to zero out, right? And hang on, let me let a few more people in who have just joined.
So basically, I mean, what you're talking about, when you're talking about value pricing, trying to figure out how you're going to price your services, there's two ways to go about it. You can obviously, if you build in the efficiencies, then you're actually taking your own time back to build in that extra value to allow you to get more done throughout your day. That's
Right.
one way. Obviously, if you are hesitant to price too, I would argue too high on your actual services, you've always got that back end side that you can grow into increasing your value pricing or your package deals by implementing some of these efficiencies that you're talking about and get away from that hourly rate.
And keep, and just to underscore and make sure everybody gets very clearly, Matthew, the most important thing to me out of what you just said is that the extra time we free up is time we can use to add much greater value to our clients, right? Because with that extra time, I can do more analytics, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. But that's the key, is to free up that time to add more value so I can easily justify, and the client will be happy to pay these much higher prices, right? So, we're going to take a look at that. But going back to my eBay example, so we've got 1,000 transactions in any given month, sometimes more, sometimes less, usually more. And I've got to reconcile that against all the PayPal payments, because eBay transactions are always paid via PayPal, right? eBay owns PayPal. So we're sitting there in a reconciliation screen trying to find a sale, trying to find the payment that goes with it. And a lot of times we're selling the same item for the same price, so it's not always that easy to match up. So the process was actually taking like 6 hours in a month to reconcile this one clearing account, but it was important for us to do because we needed to make sure we didn't miss a single sale. I am very thorough when it comes to this stuff. I will not miss $1 of sales. I will not miss $1 of payments. I want to make sure we're capturing everything, because oftentimes, even if it's one little sale that's missing, it opens up a bigger picture issue that needs to be addressed. So I am like insane about that kind of thing. I will never plug a reconciliation, not even for a penny. It's just that important to me to make sure I've been that exact. That comes from the auditor in me, where because I know what can happen. I know that what looks like $100 difference can be $9,900 going one way and $10,000 going the other way. And I've had a story exactly like that I've shared with people. So, and there's no bank feed process for this eBay use case, right? I can't just have a bank feed downloading. And by the way, the PayPal bank feed thing, don't use it. It's still terrible. It's gotten a little better, but it's still, you have the sale in one transaction and the fee in another, and it becomes a mess to reconcile that, right? So I use my import process for that, much, much, much more efficient. So what did I do about the eBay? Because I found myself sitting there once again going, there's got to be a better way, right? And so here's what I figured out. And it happened while I was on the phone with a prospective client. He called me with the very same issue. He's got eBay. He was using one of these cloud apps, like a connector app to push his eBay sales in. And he said, I've been having a lot of problems. Sales don't show up. Sales that actually happened in eBay aren't showing up. This app that I'm using is making errors. And now I'm having to spend hours finding out where that missing sale is, right? To make sure that I've captured everything and to make sure that I've shipped everything I was supposed to and so on. There's logistical implications here that are that's why you can't just blow it off and say, it's just a $25 sale. That $25 sale could cost you a customer, which could cost you thousands, right? And all the people that they're going to say, hey, I never got my product and blah, blah, blah. So it really is important. It comes back to what we do for these guys. So I talking to the client, it was just something he said. It wasn't even in context of solving this particular issue. But it triggered the thought because I was paying attention, because I was engaged, because while I was talking to the client, I wasn't thinking about the next thing I want to say. I was actually listening to the client. And he made a comment that reminded me that eBay sales report includes the PayPal transaction ID. And then it came together in an instant, because I can take the eBay export in Excel, and I can take the PayPal monthly statement CSV, and I can write a VLOOKUP, and I can make Excel reconcile it for me in 2 seconds flat. Because now it'll flag everything that it finds a match for on both sides. So when I go to reconcile that clearing account, instead of having thousands of transactions to check off to get it to zero, I select all, and I have a handful of transactions to uncheck. And those are the ones I have to research and find out why they're not showing up. From the eBay side, why aren't they showing up in PayPal? But I can reconcile. So literally that took a 6-hour process and turned it into a 20-minute process, if that. So I'm not kidding when I say that we have an opportunity here to take a 6-hour process and turn it into 20 minutes. This is not an exaggeration, hours to minutes, right? So if you use a product, by the way, like QuickBooks Payments, shifting gears a little bit, Your customer payments are processed online. The payments are automatically applied to invoices and deposited into your account, both in QuickBooks Online and in your actual bank account. This saves time, right? And the time these things save is worth far more than the fees you pay. I promise you. And you know what else saves time? Not having to do my billing every month. You know how many hours I used to spend sending invoices out each month? But I don't do it, and I don't miss it because every client is on a flat fee, so they simply go on a subscription. Even if you're still invoicing for the subscriptions, you can automate that in QBO, but then you still have to chase people to find out why they haven't paid the invoice or to get them to remind them to pay the invoice. So I'd much rather put them on a subscription. Their cards get charged every month again. Another thing I no longer have to think about. Okay? So you can do this with WooCommerce like I do, or you can use ChargeOver, which is a great app that facilitates payment processing. It can do subscriptions and all kinds of other things. We've had them on this very Zoom a couple of times before, so you can get a demo right here on nerdenterprises.com and see what that looks like, or just reach out to Ryan, is the guy from ChargeOver. He's there at every conference, and he'll be more than happy to give you a demo. Tell him Nerd sent you.
You can also actually use QuickBooks Online itself, just do a sales receipt and make it reoccurring, and you can have it auto-charged.
Right, but then you have to put in their credit card information.
All right.
There's an important reason why I don't like handling it that way, and it has to do with PCI compliance, right?
Good point.
So that's why I prefer to avoid that, because if you have ever seen the forms you have to kind of go through to make sure you're in compliance with PCI, I look at that, and in 2 seconds I'm like, I'd rather let somebody else do that. I have other things to do.
There's a good blog post, a podcast with Ron Baker, because he and who's the other guy he's with? Ed. They're giving up value pricing. Yep, they're giving up the value pricing topic, and they talked all about why everybody should move towards subscriptions and how even vehicles are going to be subscribed to instead of leased. And it was really interesting concept of how that's what you should be doing with billing.
Right. Right. And I'm going to cover that. I'm going to cover my version of that because I depart from them a little bit when it comes to how we arrive at the pricing. And we're going to get into that in a few minutes. But it's important to me to kind of give you this context that I'm giving you right now. And so because when I started 97 and Up, which was, I think, about 3 years ago now, right, Sarah? Hasn't it been about 3?
Yeah.
It was because I saw an opportunity. And I was doing a lot of training, one-on-one training or one-on-group training, whatever it was. And that was the primary source of income that I had. And I said to myself, all the stuff that I'm teaching, especially, I had a lot of business owners hiring me for training to teach them how to better keep their books and whatnot. But then I had a lot of accountants and bookkeepers who were asking me for help, learning all this cloud stuff and just learning how to, improve processes and workflows and things like that. And I said, why not build a business offering consulting services and actually make money doing what I'm teaching others to do? And it was important to me to do that for one really important reason above all else, which is if I'm going to be teaching others how to do this stuff, I'd like to be able to know that I'm actually sharing experience, right? And not just teaching you when I haven't had a client of my own in 20 years, right? I didn't want to be one of those people. So I wanted to be able to know that if I'm teaching you how to do this stuff, it's because I have my own direct experience doing it. So I remember I sat down one day, it was like a Saturday morning, and I was all fired up. And I wrote this email to a bunch of my accounting friends and basically said, look, here's what I'm going to do. I see an opportunity here. I have all this knowledge, all this stuff I know how to do, all these ways I know how to automate things. And 3 years ago already, it wasn't nearly as good as it is today. And I said, I'm going to build a consulting business, and I'm going to do it right in front of you. And if you want to come along for the ride, I'll show you exactly what I'm doing. When I test things out, I'll share it with you. If it works, I'll show you how to do it. If it doesn't work, I'll tell you that it didn't work. And and basically, so right in front of your eyes, either I'm going to fail and fall flat on my face, or I'm going to, succeed and do really well and help others do likewise, right? That was my plan. And I sent this email out, and I was overwhelmed with the number of people who jumped in and joined and said, yes, Seth, I'll pay $97 a month for that. And people have told me it's worth 3 times that, and I believe it is. And at one point, I raised it to $197 because a few people convinced me that I should. And then I said, no, you know what? It's not about that for me. I don't want to make this inaccessible, even though it probably is worth more than $197 a month. I said, I don't want this to be about that. I just want it to be about everybody who's a member making a contribution to basically help me help you, so that I can afford to spare the time to put in and show you guys what I'm doing. And so at the same time, I'm thinking, what kind of a business am I going to build that I'm going to share with everyone, right? And I start thinking big picture, different kinds of models for businesses. And I knew I wanted to do flat rate pricing. There was no question about that. But within that, there's, been two very general pricing models that any business in any industry can employ, right? I can be like Budweiser and churn out high volume at low price, low value, right? Right? Or I can be a high end, right? And do low volume, high priced, and high level of service. And I said, I don't really love either of those options. I want to find a way to go in the middle. I want to find a hybrid. I want to be able to charge really good fees that get me excited to do the work. And I want to, but I still want to be able to do volume. And I said, well, wait a minute. With all this cloud technology, with all this ability we have to create these efficiencies, going back exactly to what Matthew just shared, that's how I can do that. Because I can create these efficiencies and take repetitive processes off my plate, and that's going to free up the time so I can deliver the high value of service, still charge high fees, and do it for a lot of clients because I have extra time compared to what I would have if I was billing by the hour and doing it the old way, right? So when I looked at revamping my business model, I saw an opportunity. I could do both. I could offer a high level of service, charge a lot, and do a lot of volume. And the extreme efficiency is exactly where the opportunity lies. You can charge a lot, get more efficient, have a lot of extra time to focus on delivering value to your clients, right? Looking at reports with the clients, using Zoom, logging in with clients, sharing with them, and helping make sure that they actually take the time to look at what you've sent them and that they actually understand it and they know how to read it, right? And even the more savvy ones are probably just going to be too busy to bother unless you sit down and pin them down into their chair and say, look at this with me, because there's important and intelligent information we can take out of this and use it to make valuable decisions about how to go, which direction to go with your business. So I don't worry about giving each and every client, their own dedicated Slack workspace to communicate with me. And in fact, at first I only offered that to my higher level clients. And then I realized it makes my life easier. So now all clients at all levels get Slack, dedicated. And it's dedicated because this way I can build out the channels to make the conversations intelligent. And I'm about to publish a blog post with Firm of the Future that goes over how I do this. But I've also covered it in some videos before, talked about it, not this past QuickBooks Connect, but the one before, because it came up during my session, where very quickly I model the channel structure after the balance sheet. I have a channel for banking. I have a channel for accounts receivable. I have a channel for inventory, and on down the list. And then, of course, we create other channels that we need to do as we go, right? So, I know people are worried, I'm going to get inundated. You won't. I promise you, you won't. Don't let that fear prevent you. Because like I said, it makes my life easier, actually, probably more so than theirs. So in most cases, you should be able to update the bookkeeping for your clients in under an hour per week. Most cases, exceptions, sure. But in most cases, with the clients I serve, and these are inventory intensive clients, most weeks under an hour. And even if it's more than an hour, it's still so much less than what it used to be that charging a flat fee, if I go over my standard number of hours, I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about losing my shirt because of all the time I've spent. Because in the few instances where something comes up that maybe takes up a lot of time, I'm so far under the radar in terms of the time it takes most weeks, especially compared to the fees I charge, that I don't worry about it. And now I'm not at odds with the client. The client sees me as somebody who's very anxious and eager and willing to partner with them, because the client doesn't sense any amount of hesitation in my voice when they need my time. In fact, I jump on it with them. And I have clients who will ping me and say, hey, I'm having a problem. I know you get expedited QuickBooks support because of your Diamond support. Do you mind calling them for me? And I say, absolutely. It's a great service and added value to deliver for your clients because I get Diamond support. I can get things done for them much faster. And when I do stuff like that for them, they don't mind paying my fees. And my fees are not cheap. And we're going to get into that just very soon, I promise you. So in most cases, in my experience, you should be able to update bookkeeping for your clients in a typical small client scenario in under an hour a week. So like I said, on this basis, when something comes up and it takes a little extra time, no big deal, because most weeks it's taking up so little time to maintain your clients. So the question is, and here's the question of the day, how much do you charge and what do you offer, right? Everybody ready for this? And yes, it's under an hour for each client. I'm looking in the chat. And sorry, I'm not able to look too closely at the chat. So if somebody else can kind of look at that for me and just interrupt me with any questions.
Sarah has been on it for you, Seth. So the biggest question is your 97 and up program. A lot of people want to know how to get involved.
Okay. Stick around. We'll cover that. Okay. Because I want to make sure we cover this material. And if you have to leave early or something, just reach out to me. I'm very easy to find on the internet, right? Just go to nerdenterprises.com. And well, here, I'll just give you the real quick answer. Let me bring this back up on my screen and I'll share my screen because it's just about time we did that anyway. I'll give you a quick nickel tour and then we'll jump back into the material. So we're on my site at Nerd Enterprises. Under services, you'll find subscription-based training. This is where you'll be able to sign up. This is also where all the courses are. Same place for both things. You'll find all the courses here. Here's our core 97 and up course. So 97 and up gives you access to every single course and a lot of other things too. You can click here and see the outline of the course. It's laid out in Google Sheets, so you can see all the stuff we go through. It's designed really for you to consume one lesson per day. Okay, and you click on a course title to access the actual course. Scroll down to the very bottom of the page. You can see I've got a bunch of courses in here, and here are the different subscription plans. 25 gets you access to all the courses except for 97 and up stuff. 97 gets you access to all the courses. And then I have a one-on-one mentoring program, which I'm offering, which gives you a weekly hour session with me or somebody like me, but right now it's me, where I will walk you through this course and help you set up everything that the course goes over. So I will literally hold your hand, well, not literally because it's virtual, but I will pretty much hold your hand through the whole process and get your business set up from start to finish with a very specific goal in mind of making, you know, let's just say likely significantly more than you're even thinking you can make right now. When I threw numbers out at people when we started this program, they were amazed, but I showed them literally in black and white how they could accomplish what I was proposing to accomplish with them. So that's what 97, it's my way of helping other accountants and bookkeepers go at it and do it intelligently and efficiently and build a business that you can live on.
Worth every single penny.
Thank you.
I agree. And, you know, one of the questions you were asking, and maybe I'm off topic a little bit, but it sounded like you were asking, what are we charging and what are we seeing as a...
Well, that's the question I'm about to get into the answer for. The question was, how much do you charge and what do you offer?
And so, you know, my basic package now, where I used to give it away for $225 a month, I'm charging $400 a month, and I'm getting it done in like you said, less than an hour, usually half an hour a week.
Right.
If we
now I know
that out, that's $200 an hour. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good effective hourly rate. I know there are those among us who have much more complex clients, like Mrs. Laidlaw, sorry, in case we're old-fashioned that way. But we're talking about a typical use case, right? Sarah, you deal with nonprofits. You deal with much more complicated, but I'm sure your fees are...
I want some easy ones.
Then go get some easy ones. I'll show you how. Stick around.
I'm in the wrong business.
So again, the question is, and while we're here real quick, let me just double check our participant list and see if there's anybody who needs to be let in. All right, good. So the answer is, again, the question is, how much do you charge and what do you offer? And the answer is, it depends, right? So here's what I want you to do. Take out your notebooks, your Rocket books, your Evernote, your OneNote, whatever it is you use to take notes right now, because this is where you want to really start taking notes if you haven't been already. Okay, and I want you to think about what your core accounting or bookkeeping service would look like. Forget about price. Think about, we're going to answer that question first. What do you offer, right? Your core accounting service, your typical monthly client, what things would you want to be doing for them on a recurring monthly basis, right? You're going to update bank feeds for all bank and credit card accounts. Of course, you're going to reconcile all of those accounts, right? You're going to probably set up some reports for them. The beautiful thing about working with QuickBooks Online in particular is you can automate this, right? I can set a group of reports and set it on a schedule, and it gets emailed to the client every week. And since I build the services around weekly bookkeeping, I know that, and this is how I structure my world, I know that any particular client, I know what day of the week I work on that client every week. That's how I structure it. So each client gets a day that I'm going to work on them. Obviously, there's more than one client in a day. But the point is, I know every week exactly the day I'm going to update their stuff, which means I'm going to get their bank feeds updated every week on that day. So I schedule the reports to go out usually 2 days later. I leave myself that 1 day buffer in case after I'm done, I think of something and say, oh, crap, I want to get that updated before the reports go out. So I give myself that buffer.
Do you want to give them the tip about even your monthly bookkeeping clients, how we do them weekly?
You give it to them, Greg.
We do them weekly. We just get her done, and that makes the end of month close just so much easier.
And you know what happens there? Because actually, Greg, I think it was you who asked me about that. You were like, wait a minute, your thing says you do it monthly, but you still update it weekly? And my answer to you, if you remember, was I've never had anybody complain about over-delivering. Imagine. Again, adding more value. Imagine a client's expectation is I'm doing it monthly, but little by little, they start to notice when they go into their QBO company that it's been updated this week, even though it's not the end of the month yet. All right. Yeah. Again, it just makes my life easier. And this way, everybody's on the same schedule, right? Every week I update a particular client. And yes, you're going to need to hire people to scale because you as an individual running a business can only do so much. And that's what I did. And that's part of my bigger picture model, which we're not going to get into today. I've discussed it before. But again, in 97 and Up, we go into great detail about how I structure all that stuff and how it's working. Like I said, when I set out to do this, I set out to test some things out and figure out what works and what doesn't. And I took some big risks along the way. And so far, it's all working out quite well. So again, take out your notes. Think about what you would offer in your core service. And what we're building, I'll spoil it for you, is what that middle plan is going to look like, what your sweet spot's going to look like, right? So again, bank feeds for every bank and credit card account, reconciliation. And if you're thinking about the number of transactions, please stop doing that. It doesn't matter. This stuff is so automated now. It doesn't matter how many transactions there are. You're going to set up rules, and 100 transactions are going to be done in a second anyway.
What is your response to a client who thinks that's all bookkeeping is? Well, I only have so many transactions. What kind of comeback?
I immediately say it has nothing to do with the number of transactions. That's my.
Well, I know I do, but they want to know, you know.
Yeah, I say it has nothing to do with the number of transactions. What it has to do is what we do with those transactions. And ultimately, I say to the clients, this is the truth. And if you aren't thinking about it this way, I really want to encourage you to start thinking about it this way. I know you get this, Sarah, but for anybody else listening who may not be thinking of it this way, the output of our accounting or bookkeeping service is not the number of transactions we process. It's the reporting that we can deliver. It's the data, right? Matthew and I were talking about data the other night. That's the output. That's what we're delivering, is we're delivering data. And we're delivering it in a way that compiles a financial picture for the company that's accurate, that's reliable, that can be used to make important decisions about the direction of the client's company. So that's what I tell them. It has nothing to do with the number of transactions we process. It has.
Sarah, I want to say that I only get those questions at the beginning or when I'm beginning a relationship with a client. After I've been in a relationship with a client, they know, what to expect from me, and they've gotten so much more than just data entry. Right. I had the time to talk to them, to go over things, to explain things to them. So that's no longer a question after I've had the relationship with the client.
Yeah, and usually what gets you past that pretty quickly also is when you review the reports with them, because that's when you start smacking them in the face with the real value of what you're doing, is reviewing the reports. So sometimes, Sarah, it might even be a case of saying to the client, bear with me, I promise you it has nothing to do with the transactions, but I don't want to try and convince you of that. Let me prove it to you. Give me a month. Right? Mm-hmm. And then a month later, you schedule the session in Zoom, you go through their reports with them. They won't be asking about the number of transactions anymore because they'll be focused on so many higher value things, right? Right. And if a client harps on that and stays on that beyond that point, they're probably not a good client. They're probably not the client I want, right? Mm-hmm. Scaling your heights.
I don't sell data. I'm not all about just data entry. If you just want a data entry clerk.
Yeah. If you want to be snarky about it.
All day long, it's just,
Yeah. If you want to be snarky about it, you can suggest to that client when they ask that question that they might want to go onto Craigslist and hire a Craigslist bookkeeper.
Exactly. Do you know you're still screen sharing? Is that what you want?
Yeah, I know, because I'm getting into this. In fact, I want to get into it soon because we're actually running short on time.
Okay.
Luckily, this is all planned very well, I promise you. The demonstration part doesn't require a whole lot of time, but this context is important before we get into the demonstration. So again, core services, right? Bank feeds, reconciliation, reports, managing the documents, right? So, you know, using things like I saw in the chat, I quickly glanced, a few people mentioned something about HubDoc. You know, I loved HubDoc at first. Now I can't stand it. I can't stand having to constantly go in and feed authentication codes. It actually slows me down more than it helps me. I'd rather a process like Bilby's has where I actually have a rule. When an invoice comes in, a bill comes into my inbox, I assign it the Bilby's label. Zapier comes in and forwards it right into Bilby's for me. So I have my own HubDoc built in, and it's much more reliable. I never have to worry about authentication codes. You know, and there's a few other things that I might have to grab and send in there manually, but it's a much better process. If I have to stop and feed a code every day, it defeats the purpose. The purpose is supposed to be that it takes that thing out of my mind and off my plate. So that's why I've stopped. I have 2 clients left in HubDoc, and I doubt I will ever go back to adding more clients in. So managing documents, you'll figure out which service you want to use, and it's very easy to do that for clients with the technology we have these days. Bill pay, do you want to offer that? In my case, I offer it based on a conversation. If you look at my pricing table, and let me show you my pricing table, I found I was very flattered. I found out somebody that I talked to was getting a demo from somebody at Bill.com, actually. And whoever it was at Bill.com, I have no idea who, apparently had them go onto my site, and my accounting and business consulting page is where I offer the consulting services, doing the bookkeeping and accounting for companies. They used mine as the example. They said, look at this pricing table. It's a good example, right? And so you're welcome to use this. I'll give you the link in the chat. Where is the chat? Where'd it go? I can't find it. The chat hates me. There it is. All panelists. So I just put the link to this in the chat. You're more than welcome to use this. Notice it's simple. It's not real detailed. And this, I didn't just make this up as I went. I actually did some research. Before this version of my website, I was using a plugin for pricing tables. The guy who created that plugin, I read a little bit about him. He was an expert at pricing tables. He was an expert about the psychology behind pricing tables and how they work and what makes them effective and what doesn't. And when I paid for his premium version of his plugin, he gave a free ebook. And I actually took the time to not just read it, but study it. I went through it, took notes, and learned. Notice I have my highest plan to the left and my lowest to the right. Most people do that backwards, right? But there's a specific psychology to this. It's called framing. We read from left to right, and so we see the highest plan first, we see the lowest plan last. This is framed to make this plan look really cheap, right? This looks really expensive, and it should. The middle plan is where we want them, right? That's our sweet spot. So there's a lot of psychology that goes into this, okay? And notice visually, you can see clearly on the startup, you really get the least, right? And that's intentional. That's the way it should be. And I'm going to get into that. I want to get into the demo real quick. But just know that that's there, and you're welcome to use it, plagiarize me, whatever you want to do. Okay, so again, core services, bill pay. Then there's payroll and sales tax. And I'm sure you can add to the list, but those are the basics, right? And speaking of payroll real quick, please outsource your payroll. Please don't do your own payroll. Use ADP, use QuickBooks full service payroll. Pay somebody else to do it. It's not a good use of your time. You make one mistake, it'll cost you hours and money, right? Do not process your own payroll. It's just not a good value add for you, right? It's neither valuable nor worthy of your time to do your own payroll. So you may think you're saving money, but you're wasting valuable time, and that time is probably worth a lot more than what you're saving by doing payroll, right? Sales tax is also a waste of your time, not to mention you're probably getting it wrong, right? Because the rules are so crazy. So here are your options. Write these down. We have Avalara, we have LumaTax, and we have TaxJar. There are others, but those are the first 3 that came to my mind when I was writing my notes for today. Okay, so Avalara, some people worry it's too expensive, but no question, hands down, they're the best, right? LumaTax and TaxJar are also good. LumaTax I really like. I actually talked to their CEO. And I really liked what he's doing and where he's going with all this. There's interesting things that he's doing with the data that he's gathering by processing sales tax information for people that I think is going to prove very useful for people. So just pick one, stop worrying about the cost, the time is worth more. And so that the above list of basic services that I just kind of ran through and asked you to think about will be the makeup of your middle plan. And then we're going to scale it down to come up, and we're going to scale it down and then up to come up with the lower plan and the upper plan, right? Your lowest plan should include just bank feeds and monthly reconciliation, little if anything more than that, right? It's designed to kind of, get people to want to upgrade at a certain point and hopefully sooner rather than later. At the same time, if you can get clients that stay in that level all day long, talk about being able to keep up the bookkeeping in less than an hour, try 5 minutes a week. And imagine, you saw my plans, I charge $500 a month for that. We actually love those clients and love for them to stay because I can do that stuff in my sleep and make a ton of money and still offer great value for what the clients are paying because it doesn't take any time to maintain those. Okay, but now we're ready to figure out the pricing. So sorry I waited till so long to get to this, but I really had to give you that context, right? And real quick, because this is where I'm going to throw a curveball at you, but you're going to see the process of arriving at the pricing is very quick, especially once you've established that core list of services. That's the critical part. That should be the longest time it takes to do this process. Okay. Now, everybody's been telling you to base it on value, right? How much is it worth to the client? And if the client shows up to your meeting with them and they're driving a BMW, their time's probably worth more, so your services are worth more to him. And honestly, I'm not sure where the integrity is in that, but okay, that's the message I've got, from talking to some people about, quote unquote, value pricing. Forget value, it's subjective. Instead, we're going to set some goals. And the process I'm about to show you in the short time we have left together this morning is a small piece of something, as you've started to see, that we cover in much more detail in 97 and up in our program. So we're going to back into your pricing based on goals. Someone asked me in the questions ahead of time about how the industry you're in might drive pricing. You probably can figure out by now already that on this basis, the way we're doing it, the industry doesn't matter, but it might shape what that list of core services looks like. Right? For example, if the nature of what you're offering is you're servicing legal clients, right? If the nature of the law practice you're going to work with involves trust accounting, which it likely does, then you should charge more for that because that's extra thing that you have to manage, right? The value is in the fact that you're managing these things for your clients. You're managing their bank accounts and their credit card accounts. You're managing their accounts receivable to make sure they're collecting. This means you're also managing cash flow for them, right? So let me ask you a question. When you think about that basic core list of services that you can offer, what amount of money gets you excited to do the work, right? I told you earlier, $5,000 for that job I got me really excited to do the work. So let's quickly run through this template. 5 minutes is all I need. I probably need less, right? This is the template we use in 97 and up. So let's say that our goal this year is to make $200,000, $1 gross. Anybody good with that? Does anybody want more? All right, Matthew wants it to be $500,000. Fine. So my goal is $500,000.
We live in California, so we got to get up there.
All right, fair enough. The next question is, looking at that core list of services, how many clients can you handle? My experience is a one-person practice can typically handle between 20 and 30 clients, monthly clients, right? So I put it at 25, which means your annual revenues per client are $20,000, which means your monthly revenue per client in that middle plan is going to be $1,600, right? Roughly. Round that up. Call it $1,750. Use a nice even number. Okay? This template actually then takes that and it does round things and it kind of builds out your other plans. This is a simplified version, right? But it kind of just does it for you. And this is just to use as a guide. Of course, you'll want to tweak this to suit your own situation or scenario, right? But that's basically the process. And you see how easy and simple that is? It's because this gets me excited to do the work. I know that in this middle plan, I can do these things very easily. And it won't take much time because I'm automating everything I can automate. And I'm getting it done very quickly. So again, I set a simple goal. Annual goal, how many clients can I handle? And notice I've got my note here. This can scale if, when, and as you hire people, right? So once I get to 25 clients, and let's say I'm pricing things this way, then I can just hire another person so I can now go to 50 clients, right? If I'm assuming 25 clients per person, right? And obviously there's going to be some kind of a revenue split between me and the person doing the work for me, however I structure compensation, but it's no secret by now that I do it based on a percentage of revenue. I don't pay the people who work with me hourly, or I don't pay them a salary. They get a percentage of revenue. And we've had detailed conversations in other Zooms that we've done about that. I don't remember which one. Somebody was asking me. It wasn't the subject of the Zoom. It was just a breakout conversation that we wound up having about it. So I can't tell you exactly which one it was. But we got into that. And again, so we can do a Zoom on that specifically. I'm happy to cover the compensation model that comes from all of this. But this is how I set my pricing. When I looked at mine, very honestly, I approached it a little different way than this. This has evolved from how I originally did mine. But when I was building that initial plan 3 years ago, I said to myself, as my core service, I'd really like to be charging around $1,500 a month. That seemed pretty good, right? And I said, I'm aggressive. And already considering that I'm going to hire people to help me do the work, because right out the gate, I said, I'm not going to be able to accomplish what I want to accomplish just doing it all myself. So I said, I want to, as my first kind of baseline goal, I want 100 clients. So $1,500 a month times 100 clients is $150,000 a month, right? Times 12 months is $1,800,000 a year in gross revenues. That was my initial goal. And then what happened is things evolved. And as some of you know, I took on e-commerce, and with e-commerce and the added stuff that involves, my middle plan has now become $2,500 a month, which has raised my short-term goal to $3 million a year in gross revenues. But remember, this is based on having a staff, not just me, right? It's based on having, on average, 25. So if I have 100 clients at 25 clients per person, right, this means it's supported by a staff of 4. A staff of 4 handling this kind of a client load is ridiculous. Most firms would need a staff of 10 to do it, but it's because of the efficiencies we can create. It's because there's nothing that can be automated that we don't automate. And even when we've automated something, we're still looking for ways to automate it even better, right? That's the whole key to how we build this model. That's why I only needed to leave 5 minutes for this last part, because when you have the context and you build everything else, especially once you list those core services you're going to offer, like I've done here, like I've got listed here, then it becomes easy. All you have to do is figure out how much money do you want to make and how many clients can you handle offering the core services you offer. If you're in the legal profession, if you're serving legal clients, you might want to lower that 25 client number because you have more stuff to do for your typical legal client. So maybe you can handle 15 clients with the trust accounting and everything else that's involved. Notice also in my pricing table that I've got it pretty simple, pretty high level. That's another important thing I learned from when I studied how to build a pricing table. A lot of us want to put all this detailed stuff. What are we charging for sales taxes and payroll taxes and all this stuff? And he guided you specifically in this ebook not to do that here. You can have other supporting pricing tables that drill down and go into more detail, and you'd put that further down on the page. But the first thing your prospective client looks at needs to be simple. If you throw too much at them, they're going to be lost, and you're gonna lose them big time. So just keep it simple when you're doing the pricing table. That's what it comes down to. And we're pretty much at the end of the hour, so I will shut up and see, do we have any other questions? Does anybody have any questions? Or no, everybody's just dumbfounded.
Can you share that ebook where we can purchase that? Or
I have to dig it up. It was, like I said, I got it as a free giveaway when I paid for a premium plugin. The plugin was called Pricing Tables. The developer was called Fat Cat Apps. I know myself. I'm sure I saved it somewhere. I just don't know where it is at this point.
Okay,
but I'd have to.
Fat Cat Apps.
Yeah, Fat Cat Apps is the developer who made the plugin. So if you Google that, you might even find it somewhere on his website, or you can contact them and say, hey, I understand you have an ebook about pricing tables. I'd love to get a copy. And and if I can dig it up, for sure I'll drop it into our 97 Up Slack workspace.
Great, thank you.
Couple of golden nuggets that I saw heard out of all of this in transitioning from hourly to the value-based kind of a concept. Really like the idea of adding on a Slack channel that really speaks to more of the value instead of the hourly. all those kind of add-on services, the assistance with the QuickBooks Technical. That's another great one that goes away from that hourly pricing that you can use during that transition. That's great.
Yeah. And the other thing is, if you're worried about raising rates and moving to flat rates, start with new clients. Leave your existing clients alone, right? Because as you build this new model with new clients, eventually you'll have the kind of leverage that makes it a lot easier for you to go to existing clients. And I think you'll find you'll be surprised how easily your old clients convert when the time comes, because they're with you and they've been with you for a while. They clearly see the value in what you do for them. So when you go to them and say, hey, I'd like to switch over to a flat rate model for you, and here's kind of what I offer, and you tell them which of your plans you think they fit into, based on what you're already doing for them. And most of the time you'll find that they say, are you kidding? Of course, I'd love this. It's, most clients are going to love the fact that they now know exactly what it's going to cost them every month.
They like being able to budget the same amount every month.
Exactly.
That's real attractive.
They will pay more for that, actually. If your typical hourly billing was coming out to $1,500 a month and you go, I want to charge you a flat fee of $2,000 a month, they'll do it in a heartbeat, because they'll do it for the predictability. They'll know
every client converted with no problem. I said, I analyzed the last couple of years. I'm going to bump it up a little bit, divided by 12. No more nitpicking little bills, and they're happy as can.
They love too. Don't you think they love that they can, like, the thing I used when I sold it to my customers, my current one, was that you can call me at any time, ask me any question, and you don't have to be worried about the clock ticking like you're talking to your attorney. And they were like, really? I can do that? And I was a little afraid that they were going to really do that, but they really didn't. Like, they weren't calling me and asking me a lot of questions, but the communication line opened up.
It's the same philosophy behind Slack. Because Slack, it's the same thing. You're going to be worried that they're going to inundate you. And I'll be honest, some of them do in the beginning, because it's the novelty of it. They love the idea that they have this kind of access to you, but it wears off quickly. And they start to realize, and most of my clients, with barely an exception, really value and respect my time, Right. And so after they get over the initial excitement and novelty of having something like Slack with that kind of access to you, it pares down to, they use it when they need it and as needed, And look, there are times when I have, like, one client in particular very rarely pings me in Slack, but when he does, it's usually something that I'm like, oh, shit, because I know it's going to be like something big that's going to be time consuming. But then I have to remember, this guy is paying me $1,500 a month, right?
Yeah, he's accrued it in your mind.
Yeah, he's accrued it big time. Exactly. Because he's fairly low maintenance. Kelly, my bookkeeper, does most of the work. I barely have to do anything to earn my share of that $1,500 every month. So if I have to, he's one of the ones who calls me most often, and by most often I mean for the specific need of me calling Diamond support on his behalf. Not that he calls me most often among my clients. He calls me very rarely. But even if it's once a month, he wants me to get on Diamond support to, get expedited support on an issue he's having. In the end, I'm happy to do it. Sometimes I cringe because I'm like, oh, I didn't plan on this today. I have other things I planned. But and he's very, again, respectful of my time. Sometimes I'll have to say to him, hey, Jack, I can't do it today. Can this wait till tomorrow? And most of the time he's like, of course, no problem. And then I love Slack, because then I can put a reminder on that message in Slack that says, remind me about this tomorrow. And 9 a.m. tomorrow, I'll get, as if I got a new message with an alert to me, I'll get a reminder that, and when I click over to look at that reminder, I see the message and I know, oh, this is when I promised I'd call support for him. So Slack,
before we leave, I want to drive home how valuable value billing or flat billing is. Okay. So we buy these little tools that speed up our work, right? So I wrote TBX. PC is $169.95. People say, oh, it's too expensive. Really? This man called me a week ago asking me questions. He does conversions to Microsoft or Dynamics 365 into Sage, right? So he's a big IT consultant and everything. And he said, I just pay for it once. And I said, yeah, everybody's getting nickeled and dimed with a subscription. And I didn't want to program it so it only worked with one QuickBooks file. He goes, really? He said, I quote 40 hours at 125, $5,000. He charges a flat $5,000 if a client wants like 3 years worth of monthly history by department into the new software. He said it takes his staff 40 hours to get all this. My program takes 30 seconds. So I was trying to convince him to sell it to all of his new clients and then get an affiliate code that way. No. He's calling the clients. He's getting a copy of their QuickBooks. He called last night. He was on the 16th one. So right now he's made 80 grand since he bought my program.
That's amazing.
So, I mean, he immediately saw the value of, I've got this tool, but I've always charged $5 grand for this. He ain't going to charge less than $5 grand. So 80 grand.
What's fun also is just like you were saying, Sarah, the conversations that it opens up with the clients when you switch them over to value billing. And then they start to think, well, what can I do in my business to offer a similar sort of thing?
Mm-hmm.
Great point.
Good.
Great point.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I want to say that you really have to get used to talking to your client too. I mean, if you're the old time accountant and you're used to just sitting there with your nose to the ground.
In the back office cranking out work.
Yeah, you got to
I'd be much happier if I didn't have to talk to anybody.
talk to the client. Ask them what's new. I mean, a question like that can really, really open them up.
Oh, yeah. And it can open up a lot of doors that give you opportunities to upsell them on services. And it's not about trying to crank money out of the client. It's about trying to help them with something they really need help with that they'll be happy to pay you for.
And a relationship. They pay for a relationship.
Yeah. I mean, I shared this with Matthew the other night. I'll share it really quickly again that, you know, I have a client that I offer just CFO services. He's got his own full-time bookkeeper. So they brought me on to provide her with support, but she was pretty much good on her own. They really just wanted me to do the monthly updates on the cash flow projections and the variance reports. So recently I was going through the variance with the owner, and actually I go through the bookkeeper every month, but at one point I said, can you get the owner on our next call, because there's some things I want to go over with him. I had some concerns about their near-term future cash flows. You know, things were looking like they were going to get squeezed a little bit. And I had some other things I wanted to go over with him based on what we'd seen in these monthly variance analyses that we're doing. Anyway, he gets on the phone and I go through it with him. And by then I had linked up in that same call cashflowtool.com. And the long and short of it is I went through cashflowtool.com with him. I was sharing my screen. I went through the different things that cashflowtool.com does and shows you and the intelligence that it gives you. He immediately wanted to sign up for cashflowtool.com for both of his companies. And that same conversation led him to say, hey, you know what, Seth, what you're doing, I can see that what you're able to do for me is really valuable. And he wanted to know, instead of doing a support plan, which is what he had with me, where he'd pay for hours, we'd use the hours up and they'd re-up. He said, I just want to retain you as our monthly interim CFO. How do I do that? And I put him on a monthly plan. I said both companies are included. I probably, based on the typical timing of when they would have to re-up on a plan, I probably increased, my revenue with this client by at least 50%. Based on the fact that I now have a flat recurring arrangement with them. Whereas before it was really the equivalent of an hourly. I mean, my support plans are packaged to look like, you're paying one price, but you're getting a set number of hours for that price. A number of hours where I log in with you. So here I'm spending whatever it takes each week to go through their cash flow projections and numbers updates. And then, once a month I'm meeting with him now to do bigger picture stuff. And he's the one who now that we've gone through all of his financials pretty thoroughly, he's like, the next thing I want to do is have you help me improve workflows and increase efficiencies and automate things. I know there's things we could be doing better in our business along those lines. And I know you're the guy who can help me with it. So again, as we introduce these apps that we use and make our clients look at them with us, it opens up the doors very specifically to creating new opportunities for us to increase our revenues. But again, not because we're trying to take advantage of the clients, but rather because we can add so much more value to them because we have so much extra time that we can devote to the higher level stuff because we're not inundated with the lower level stuff. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So I will have this posted tomorrow online at some point, along with notes. I saved the chat because it looks like there was some stuff in the chat that might be interesting to me. So I'm going to take a look at that. I saw a few people said they might want to join 97 and up, which is awesome. I highly recommend it. The guy who runs it is kind of like so-so, but the other people in the group are amazing.
That's such a lie. We're all great.
Total lie.
So anyway, hopefully you all enjoyed this. I saw some nice comments in the chat, people saying, wow, this is great. So of course I love hearing that. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. If you have a particular subject you'd like to see me cover in one of these, like I don't have a topic for next week. By tomorrow, I have to figure that out. So email me, message me, Facebook me, whatever. Just get in touch with me, send up smoke signals. Let me know what you'd like to learn.
Talk about some of the processes. How you go, HubDoc was one that was big conversation in the chat.
Okay. All right, we can talk about that. I mean, I love the guys from HubDoc, and as you heard, I'm not a big fan of the product anymore, so I don't want to like slam them too much.
Yeah.
But like I said, I have my reasons for why I like other solutions.
Absolutely. Let's see them.
Okay. Fair. I'll show you how to use Zapier to automatically forward your bills that come into your inbox into Bilbies, because that's my solution of choice now is Bilbies. I love it.
And then
Awesome.
you mentioned when we were, I think, on a 97 and up this week that you, to do the reconciliations, you download the CSVs
Yes.
into Excel, and that's another process that would...
That one's a little hard to demonstrate because it's hard to demonstrate without somebody's actual banking information in front of it. What I could do is privately, if you have a client's bank statements, I could walk through that with you. It's just because of the sensitivity, the nature of the information, it's hard for me to do a public demo on something like that.
Sure. Okay.
So that I can certainly get with you on a one-on-one. Let me think about it. Maybe I can find a way. I suppose I could dummy up the data somehow. I'll think about it.
Just simple. It does, 5 checks, 5 deposits, and something funky.
Yeah, maybe I'll just make up what I'll probably do, because this is just kind of who I am. I'll probably take a real bank statement and just change information dramatically so that there's no way in hell you could tell like what it really says. And then I'll obscure the stuff on the bank statement itself, because for the bank statement itself, all you need to see really is the previous balance, additions and subtractions, and the ending balance. And then I can show you how to, basically it's going to be a lesson in Excel for how to cut up the data. Maybe that's what I'll do next Friday, because it's powerful. I remember just sitting in Toronto last year talking to Lisa Chanel and describing the process to her, and she was like, holy crap, I can't believe I never thought of that. And now I know that's how she does it all the time. So anyway, with that, I've got to run. I've got a 9:30. I need a 15-minute break in between. So that starts now. Everybody go to Gina's Hangout later today. Gina, really quickly, tell us how they can find you in case they don't already know.
Find me on our Facebook group, Small Business Accounting Advisors. Sarah is up this week. We'll be doing nonprofits. Yes.
High pockets, Sarah.
High pockets. High pockets.
I'm not doing nonprofit.
That's hilarious.
Little Rascal is not participating in that. I'll watch though. I'll join.
All right. We'll see you all later.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.